Know that we, at the prompting of God, and for the health of our soul and the souls of our ancestors and successors, for the glory of the Holy Church and the improvement of our realm, freely and out of our good will, have given and granted to the archbishops, bishops, abbots, priors, earls, barons, and all of our realm, these liberties written below to hold in our realm of England in perpetuity. As translated by Professor Nicholas Vincent, this very preamble from the Magna Carta itself highlights the foundations of liberty under the common law. Daniel Hannan, in his presentation of the Magna Carta Memorial on September 13, 2013, described the Magna Carta as an English people's secular miracle, and the rights it granted have passed down through time to influence the second English people's secular miracle in the United States Constitution. The point Hannan is making is that these freedoms are part of the fabric of the English-speaking world and must be cherished and guarded by all generations. In Christianity and the Common Law, Augusto Zimmermann explores early English common law and its Christian influences. For instance, he reviews King Alfred the Great's legal code, which begins with the Ten Commandments and essentially overlays scriptural references upon existing English law. Zimmermann indicates that the Magna Carta's great significance rests in its historical impact as a symbol of opposition to a crown's unlawful actions at pages 158 and 9. Zimmermann connects Sir Henry de Bracton of the 13th century to the English revolutionaries of the 17th century, wherein Sir Edwin Coke quotes Bracton as the following: "History tells us that Sir Edward Coke deeply angered King James I when he declared that even kings themselves ought to be under God and the law," at page 168. In looking at the English Revolution with more detail, Jonathan Scott, in What Were Commonwealth Principles, states that for the Greeks, tyranny was not simply a state of political government, but also of soul. He cites Aristotle for the difference between a king and a tyrant, that the former ruled for the good of the republic and the latter for his own selfishness. The following quote is illustrative of the ancient idea of liberty as necessarily including self-mastery, even as applied to a king. Liberty, by contrast, was a quality of rational self-command. Within individuals, real and substantial liberty depends on sobriety of conduct and integrity of life. It was a violation of nature that one who is incapable of governing himself should be committed to the government of another. In the state, liberty was collective, rational self-government, at page 596. In the 18th century English Commonwealthmen, Caroline Robbins chronicles the history of revolutionary Whigs, or Commonwealthmen, during the 17th and 18th century. Robbins immediately establishes that there was no continuity between the leaders of the Puritan Revolution in the mid-17th century and the Glorious Revolution later in the 17th century. While on some level they were all revolutionaries, they ranged in degree from mediocre Whiggery of James Tyrrell to more violent ideals of Algernon Sidney. Robbins summarizes their positions as: the Whigs cherished ideas about checks on government from within and without, about individual freedoms, and about the ranks of society, as we later must discuss, but their inheritance of the revolutionary tradition was tempered by the admiration for the English Constitution, which they shared with nearly all their contemporaries, at pages 7 and 8. In the very idea of secession, Donald Livingston revisits the now decried idea of secession and contrasts the competing theories of Hobbes' Leviathan as the modern unitary state where individuality is lost, against Althusias's Politica as a modern federation or polity of states from which individuality is retained. He documents that secession was an accepted theory used by other states before the Civil War, but after the Civil War, secession was confused with civil war, revolution, or an attempt to take over a government by one party, none of which is accurate. Rather, secession is simply an attempt to withdraw from something. He argues the North's victory over the South constituted a nationalist or Hobbesian unitary state takeover of the Althusian federated state model. In the very idea of secession, along with Livingston's other article, The Southern Tradition and Limited Government, Livingston is addressing the politics of scale and his answer that secession in the modern world is a viable strategy for republicanism and self-government. In both articles, Livingston makes the point that in 1910, there were 435 seats for the House of Representatives for a population of 90 million, and currently the same amount of seats for a population of over 300 million, at page 460 in Southern Tradition and 46 of Very Idea of Secession. He queries whether this ratio truly reflects representative government with continued expansion of the unitary state, such as globalism, against an ever-increasing demand by mankind for smaller government, such as the dissolution of the USSR, the secession of Scotland from the United Kingdom, and even the secession of the United Kingdom from the European Union. These principles of liberty have been handed down through time, from the common law to King Alfred to the Magna Carta to the English revolutionaries of the 17th century to the present. Freedom has been part of our heritage. Given the continued tensions between the Hobbesian model of the unitary state and the Althusian model of a federated state, perhaps revisiting traditional roles of the common law as opposed to codified and central law could permit more meaningful self-government. Perhaps by remembering our freedoms and liberty traditions, we can hold our realm in perpetuity. Thank you.